Welcome to the Horror Friendly Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Horror Friendly Podcast. My name is Katie, and I am joined by Chantelle Telltale.
Hi, 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 hi.
Hey, hey.
How's it going?
It's going good. How's it going for you?
It's going good. I've just realized my water is out of reach. So if I run away at any point, I'm just
Tragic.
sorry. I drink like a fish, so I need my water.
It's not like a paranormal thing. You're just gonna go get your water.
Yeah, if I vanish suddenly. Oh, I like the paranormal touch already though. How's it going today?
It's good. It's good.
You
It's all
recovered
right.
from martyrs?
I don't know. It's funny because I was thinking about this earlier, that the fact that I chose Martyrs and you've chosen this one. And I don't know what that says about me.
I don't know what
The
it's
fact that
about
I
me.
chose, yeah. And it really reminded me of in Friends when Chandler's like, "What's wrong with me? Don't open that."
Don't open that door.
What's wrong with me? Ooh, don't open that door.
It's just like, let's not think about it. But yeah, so
That's why
Yeah.
therapy is not effective on me because I'm like, yeah, let's just not think about it. Like,
just avoid.
let's not think too deep into that one, shall we?
Yeah.
I mean, I still start. It was really funny though that we did like Thelma and Louise and Martyrs back to back, like two heavily focused on like female friendship, very different perspectives.
Yes.
Very different
Yeah,
stories.
they both were about friendship, but just in very different ways.
Yes, so you know all the extremes. But today we're not going to be looking at friendship. There's a bit of a father-son relationship, but not a friendship. So we are covering the 2016 horror mystery, The Autopsy of Jane Doe, directed by Andre Overdell.
Overdoubt, I want to say.
Andre Overdell. And I should know how to pronounce his name because we have covered one of his films before, the Last Voyage of the Demeter. But this time we're doing The Autopsy of Jane Doe, where two coroners start an autopsy on an unidentified girl to investigate the cause of her death. However, as they get closer to finding answers, bizarre events take place. Katie, I believe this was your first time watching.
It was. It was my very first time. Sorry, that just threw me off. It's my very first time. I enjoyed it. I wasn't really sure what to think of it. I wasn't really sure what to think going in. Wasn't too sure. I know that you said you'd really liked it in the past, and I had heard good things. But I guess it was just one that I never really come across before or had any reason to watch, even though I had no idea this was on Netflix. So I would have watched it way earlier if I knew that. But yeah, so I didn't really know what was going to happen. I didn't read a lot into it before I watched it, which, to be honest, I think is the best thing for this film, is to not know that much about it.
Yeah, for sure.
So this isn't your first time, right?
It's not. I remember watching this as a teenager, and I was trying to do the maths because, like, 2016. So I wasn't technically a teen. Yeah. When did we leave school? So maybe I wasn't. Maybe I was like, I don't know, whatever. But I remember like seeing it and being like, oh, autopsy, that sounds interesting. I'm going for it. And this is a little bit of me. This is a simple story, like two coroners in a basement with a dead body. Things are a bit weird. It's a bit supernatural. The SFX is fantastic. But it was funny watching it again because I couldn't remember. I didn't know how much I remembered and how much I was actually just pre-guessing, because I was like, she's definitely a witch. And I was like, but do I remember that? Or am I actually picking up on clues this time? But yeah, I think this was it. I said to you, I was like, I remember really enjoying this. So I didn't want to rewatch it and be like, it was shit. Like, so as you say, like there's definitely bits I was like, okay, I definitely still enjoy it, but I don't know, we'll get to it. Why it wasn't, So I don't think it's a straight out of the park, oh my God, best film ever. But I do think it's still really good. But I just think, we'll get to it. We'll get to
I can definitely see why you suggested it. Like, this is a bit of you all fucking over. It's got autopsies, witches, like a kind of a simple premise, but then it like turns into something huge,
Yeah.
which I know that you are a fan of. So
Yeah.
yeah, when I saw all the cutting open and the autopsies, I was like, this has got Tell written all over
You even text me and I was like, I don't know what that says about me.
it.
Let's not dig too deep. But
Yep.
as we said, like for me, horror, a simple premise works. Like we've covered so many
Yeah.
films where my main complaint is they're trying to do too much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like keep it simple. And I think especially for horror, this is like you say, you can do complicated, you can do amazing things, but you don't need to start with 6 storylines. You can start with like one very simple idea that blows up. And yeah, I think they did this well, but I don't think they necessarily knew where it was going to go at the end. No, that sounds wrong because I think they do put in a lot of clues along the way, but I think maybe as they were writing it, they weren't sure like how to wrap it up. Like someone obviously had this idea, but like how do we make it work?
Yeah, I felt like that. I agree with you. I think that like they knew like what they wanted to do with the ending, but how they got there, I think maybe was a bit more of a struggle. Because I was having to think about it earlier and I felt like I enjoyed it for the most part, but there was one kind of bit that slightly dragged for me and I wanted to kind of push it a bit, which is crazy because like it's a very short film, but
Yeah.
it just sort of felt like maybe drag's the wrong word, but I felt like it could have just been pushed along ever so slightly. So I wonder if it was like they knew where they wanted to get, but it was like getting there was like what they were kind of thinking, right, shit, how do we kind of end this
Yeah.
properly kind of thing.
I think it's interesting as well because you've got Austin and Tommy Tilden, the dad and son, who are running the autopsy. And I think what's kind of interesting is they actually make some really common sense, sensible decisions. So they're not your normal horror characters where you're like, what are you doing? Obviously, you're going to die. Like, they actually did try to leave the building. It was just that Jane Doe had too much power and trapped them in there. And then they were like, well, actually, if we go back, like maybe we can find out what's causing it and reverse it. We're going to die anyway. So I think it was funny again, like you say, like it's quite quick, like quite a short film, and they are making kind of sensible decisions for the most part. So you're like, I mean, they're not. Yeah, so you're kind of like agreeing with them as they go along, but yeah, you just don't know what they're going to find.
Yeah, and that's always kind of a nice feeling when you are agreeing with a horror movie character
Yeah,
because you're kind of like, I would do this. So you feel like you can kind of empathize with them a little bit more because you sort of think, well, I would do the same as you. Like,
yeah.
good job. But
Like,
it was really funny, like when all of these like weird things started happening, the dad was so chill. He was just kind of like, I've seen it before. I've seen it before. And I was
right?
like, what? Because I get it, like morticians must have seen so much stuff. Like they must have so much experience in their field. And I know that you know a lot more about this than I do, but like they must have seen so much shit. So that is also very plausible that he has seen this kind of almost supernatural stuff. But like he was saying it so many times, I was like, mate, what have you seen?
Well, this is what I think he was just trying to make himself believe, like,
Yeah.
because again, he's like trying to teach his son, so he's like, fuck,
Yeah.
I have to pass on my knowledge. But I think you could see him at points like going questioning because it was again just things that like contradicted each other, like her eyes being glazed over, but her body being quite fresh. So it was like, or not having rigor mortis, like it was two things that didn't make sense. And I think that was quite clever because again, like even if you do happen to have like, even if you are a mortician, I'd actually love to speak to an actual mortician and see what they think of this. But like even if that is your practice or you're a doctor or anything, you are looking at this going, things don't add up. Like they keep saying like, you know, broken wrists, broken ankles, but with no clues on the outside. Like that seems highly unlikely. So they are questioning everything as they're going along, which obviously does not slow it down, but you kind of think of an autopsy like, oh, they on to the next bit. But I guess if you don't look at the string at that moment, you're going to forget about it or it's going to get misplaced. So I guess you do have to do everything
Yeah.
as you go. What did you think? As like, did you have any clues what was coming when they first found her body and then like obviously started the autopsy?
I thought that there would be some sort of possession, like maybe she was possessed by a demon or something, or she was like a vessel for a demon, maybe, and maybe the demon was going to come out at the end. I didn't know at all that it would go down a witchy route. No. To me, it felt very much like, well, we were saying it just before we started recording, but The Conjuring, You said sinister. Like it felt a little bit more like The Conjuring to me, like it was going to be a bit more of like a possession, like maybe the dad or the son gets possessed or something. I thought it was going to go down that route. So I actually quite like that they took a different turn
Yeah.
and it was about cool witches instead.
Because it's hard because obviously like when you first see her at the beginning, we kind of just assume she's a murder victim. Because it's like a really weird place to find her as well. So I think that's really interesting and just kind of this setup like, oh, obviously, like, who is this person? Clues and
Well, for now, she's a Jane Doe.
you kind of, I know then there, like, as weird stuff starts happening, again, like, you'd never expect it to come from the corpse, which I kind of love. But again, I love that, like, they check her nose and then 2 minutes later, a fly's coming out of it. And they're like, but they just checked that it was empty.
Yeah.
As you don't have to know a lot about dead people to know that they shouldn't be getting a bloody nose. Like,
Yeah. And like I really loved the part where like at the beginning and they were like kind of examining her and she looked like a sort of porcelain doll.
Yeah.
She was like almost kind of beautiful with the way she looked, and then they opened her mouth and like most of her tongue had been missing. And so it was very much like a kind of that was a real like horror scene for me, because it was like you were sort of getting used to how she looked. You kind of thought like there's nothing fucking wrong with her. But it's only when you delve a bit deeper and you feel her feet and like you obviously open her mouth and like the fly comes out of her nose, like that's when you kind of slowly start to realize that there's something a bit more fucked up going on. So I really like the kind of tension build up with the film.
I think it's weird as well because, like, as you say, like, as the more they're exploring, but the way like Tommy Tilden, so the dad is like talking through it, he's very empathetic, and he's like, so when he's talking about her wrists and her ankles, he's like, she must have been bound. Like I've seen this before, and he immediately kind of like his behavior sort of changes. Like, I've seen this before. It was a sex trafficking case. Like he immediately is like, oh my god, she must have experienced so much horror. Like, and it's weird because when they were talking about the 3 bodies that were in the fridges or freezers, when Austin's girlfriend Emma came along and she was like, I want to see a body. Like, again, it was almost a little bit, it wasn't really respectful at that point. It was a bit like, oh, their bodies. But I like his like keeping the traditions, and I can't you kind of see it go, that's going to come back later, but like where they put the bell around the toe, and I like that they kind of put in that history and that like tradition. So I thought it was funny.
Yeah, that was cool. And like you knew it was going to come back, but you didn't hate the fact that you knew that. It was kind of like, I'm ready for this fucking bell noise. Like,
I'm ready for
I want
it.
to hear it.
But I said again, like, how did you like when they use the bell noise? Because you don't really like. I liked that you only like saw the feet, or you only saw glimpses. I like that it wasn't just suddenly a zombie movie and he was just there with his ringing toe.
Yeah, no, I like that it was quite subtle. Like you just heard the noise and then like shit kicked off. But it, like you say, it wasn't kind of like done in a cheesy way. Like they just kind of brought it back kind of like subtly, I think. And I liked that. And as you say, like we knew it was coming back, but we didn't know when.
Yeah.
So I thought it was like the perfect time for it to come back. But yeah, I mean, I did kind of think the girlfriend was a bit annoying. But also at the same time, I get like they probably just needed to kill someone else off, which is why they probably introduced a girlfriend. And it gave the son a bit of a backstory. So I do understand why she's in there. But like she's not very sympathetic to the dad, like saying like, oh, it's been years, you know,
2 years.
like, yeah,
That's
it's
it.
kind of like, bitch, come on.
Like I wrote down though, I was like, if my boyfriend was like, sorry, I've got to ditch you to do an autopsy, I'll meet you at 11, we'll go for a midnight movie. I was like, I kind of love that idea as a date. Like, sure,
of course
babe,
you fucking do.
sure, come tell me about the autopsy while we watch a horror movie in the middle of the night. I don't know, I just kind of loved it.
That's like foreplay to you.
It's just like, I don't know. I was like, it's also one of those jobs that if the police turn up with a corpse and they're like, we need a cause of death, like it's kind of urgent. Like, and I can't imagine that happens all the time, which is why I was like, I have to help my dad now. So, but yeah, I do think they needed a third person though to mirror the crime scene they found at the beginning.
Oh yeah, they did.
Was it the crime scene at the beginning, or like when they were looking at 3 bodies that they had, their deaths mirrored who they had?
Yes, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I guess they could have brought the policeman back or whatever, but I get it because obviously then the policeman had to find them at the end, so it made more sense to bring her in.
Yeah.
She was just kind of she was just
wasn't-
wasn't the most sympathetic character, I don't think.
No, yeah, especially when
Mm.
it's like, oh, two, and you're like, fuck off.
Yeah. Fuck off, mate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
again, we didn't really get enough of her to have any empathy for her, but we didn't.
No, exactly. No, you didn't need it. I don't think she was a character that you needed much empathy for. Like she was just sort of another person. So that was fine.
Yeah.
You know, you got to have some of those in a horror film.
Exactly. As I say, this is like all the sort of like build up stuff. I do get when people are like, oh, it's a little bit cliche because again, like the radio was kind of predictable. Although I love that it kind of started getting sassy at one point. I can't remember what it was saying, but it was like, you should leave or you should not carry on or something like that. I was like, the radio is actually getting sassy with them. I kind of love it.
Gusts are now being reported at up to 60 miles per hour. Rain expected to top 3 inches within the hour. This one might be a bigger deal than we were led to believe.
But yes, I do kind of get when people are like, oh yeah, it's more like a haunting, and like obviously the cat gets hurt first because of course the pet was going to go down first. Although
Of course.
when they found him and pulled him out of the vent, there was definitely a shot where I was like, oh, you can tell that's a toy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It may not have been. It may have been an actual cat and the cat was just very floppy. But to me, I was like, there was 1 or 2 shots and I was like, oh, that looks very toy-like.
Yeah, especially when like everything else has been so good that it needs to, you think it should sort of keep up. Like it should be consistent. Like you can get good. Like we've seen quite a few like dead animals when watching these horror films, and like there's been some really good ones. So I think you could. Like, I remember the original Pet Sematary was always a really good one.
Yeah.
So I think there's not really any excuse in this day and age to like do a good fake dead animal.
And again, I might be completely wrong. Maybe it was an actual animal they used. But there was just one shot where I kind of like did a double take. Because interestingly, Jane Doe was played by Owen Kelly. And other than when they actually cut into her and she was wide open cutting ribs, she was actually on the table for the whole time.
Wow.
They wanted to give Jane Doe a weird, it's not like uncanny valley, but they wanted an almost like for it to look like she was almost alive, like almost on the edge where you couldn't quite tell. So she literally just had to sit and stare at the ceiling, which the audition for that must have been very weird, like play dead. But like, so when they opened her mouth, and because they kind of went like she physically just couldn't react.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty, because I knew there was an actress, but I didn't know how much of it she did. So yeah, that's kind of impressive. Like when you think about it, it's kind of like, oh, easy paycheck. But actually it probably did take a lot of like mental strength as well to just kind of sit there and continue acting when you're not saying anything.
But I think as well, there was like, I'm sure at the end as well, she almost smirks. So again, I think there was such subtlety where like she wasn't going to have a full-on smile, but I think there was definitely very tiny behaviors.
There was something.
Yeah, and it did make you kind of go, is she alive? And then obviously the bit with her toe. Which I was almost annoyed actually that made a bell noise because she wasn't wearing a bell. And I was like, but
God damn it.
But I mean, she's a witch, so she could make her own noise.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like definitely at the end there was some sort of smirk. Like she definitely looked more human at the end.
Yeah,
So,
because she got her eye color back as well.
Yeah.
Which was, I do love actually the copper, Sheriff Sheldon. I like that he kind of just had common sense. Because again, he was like, I need a cause of death, don't know what's wrong with her. But then at the end, he obviously was like, okay, I don't know what's happened here, but it shouldn't have happened. I know these guys, they wouldn't have done it. Get her out of my county.
Yeah.
And again, like, because he's like, it's happened twice. I'm not taking a risk. And I was like, God damn, he'd survive a horror film. Like, this man is.
Yeah. Like, because it's so easy to think that, like, something happened where, maybe they had an argument and something went wrong. Like, it almost like Jane was kind of setting them up that, he killed his dad and then killed himself.
Yeah.
But the copper, like, kind of didn't entirely believe that. He was kind of like, get her out of my sight, like instantly blaming her. So it's like almost he had a vibe that like she wasn't a good, I don't know, like, a good like presence.
Yeah, like he didn't need to know any more. He just needs to know that somehow she was involved.
Yeah.
Like her being there was too much. Get her out. And I was like,
Mm.
fair play. Like again, there actually is some common sense in this film.
There is actually. Yeah. Mostly good decisions are made, to be
Yeah.
fair.
Unfortunately, they're overpowered, but they do try.
They tried. They tried.
Although I did see someone comment on that as well, that if Austin hadn't killed his dad, that Jane Doe wouldn't have killed him, because the promise between him, the dad, and Jane was please don't hurt my son. You can take what you want from me. But because he ended his suffering early, she killed the son. Although I don't know if that's true, or if she just was like, he can't survive because then he knows what I've done. Like he's figured it out. He knows what I am. She destroyed all the evidence on the autopsy board. Like, as she destroyed the camera, like she wasn't just going to let this guy who's a witness walk away.
No, yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, you can't guarantee that, like, even if she did make the deal with the dad, that she would have seen through this deal. Like, she could have just completely, done a 180 and been like, actually, no, not going to do any of that. Like, she can do whatever the fuck she wants. Like, yeah.
Fair play.
Yeah. But this kind of also goes into the good for her genre of horror films because of what she fucking went through. It's kind of like, no wonder she's pissed off.
Because that was the thing. I was like, why is she torturing this son and dad, when they're actually trying to do an autopsy and trying to help her? Obviously, they don't know she's alive at that point. But even the dad, he's kind of brilliant, because again, like, when they were talking about his mum, Tommy, Austin's mum, Tommy's wife, and they went on, he said, I called her ray of sunshine. I didn't know, basically implied she had depression and killed herself. I couldn't help, I couldn't intervene. And I was like, that seems like a weird detail to add. But then actually, when he then was talking to Jane, and it was like, he actually kind of got it. And it was like, Austin didn't, whereas Tommy was kind of like, she's literally been tortured. She's literally been suffering for centuries. She's angry. Wow. Like, it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter that they're trying to help. They can't help. They still cut her open and she's still going to hurt them. And I was like, oh, that's actually does add another layer to it. Because I thought it was such a weird detail to throw in there.
That's so true. Yeah, because, on the outside, you'd kind of think, well, why tell us how she died? You don't really, like, you could have just said she was ill or something. Like, why does it matter?
Yeah.
That's a really good point. It's kind of like he's trying up until the very end to save her and, like, look after his family. Which is obviously what he tried to do when, like, his wife was alive. So yeah, that's really interesting.
I couldn't help my wife, but I'll help you, because I don't think he just missed his wife too much. He lost the cat, and he was just a mess.
Yes.
Like, he was holding it together, but he was a mess. But somebody else,
he was just trying to be a good dad and, like, save his son.
Yeah, exactly. But then someone else also pointed out, I can't give names, unfortunately, because all the like comments I was reading, I've completely forgotten it. But someone also pointed out that actually that also ties into why all of her scars and like damage was on the inside, because again, it's a reflection of depression, that you don't see it outwardly. Like, how many people with depression walk around looking like fully functioning people, working every day, smiling, with no one knowing what's going on inside? And I was like, fuck, this goes deep. Like,
wow, I never like put two and two together with that. That's so interesting. Yeah,
it's such a niche detail that's just slipped in there that actually does give the film like 2 extra layers. I was like, oh
yeah,
ooh. I mean, I think we were supposed to get those meanings, but you can also enjoy it without them. So
definitely, that's very interesting. That does make you think kind of differently about it, actually.
Yeah.
I did cut.
No, you go because I've spoken so much.
Just very quickly going back, I did actually really like the opening. Kind of the opening of the film where you see them together, like working on a previous body, because although like it's quite horrific what they're like looking at, it's a very badly charred, burnt body, but like they've got the music on in the background, and you can kind of like see their relationship, and it kind of builds it up a bit. Which I think is quite nice, because then you do end up kind of rooting for them at the end, because they are both quite likable people, and I thought it was quite an interesting take to do like a father and a son.
Yeah. I think as well, like you say, like it's quite interesting that they weren't bad guys.
No.
Like this, that you are rooting for them. They haven't done anything wrong. They are just in this caught in this really horrible situation, which I think as well is for a horror film. This isn't a, you know, like morgues tend to prefer to hire women because for the exact reason you think.
Yep.
But so obviously seeing these two men, it's a family run business. The dad's teaching the son. They're good guys. They're filming everything. They're just trying to, and again, they talk about her so respectfully. I think while they're working on the person they do, once they're in the fridge, they're like the body, and I'm like, wow. But once they're like they're trying to figure out their story, I said there is so much respect. So I was like, why is she attacking them? Like they could have made the I forgot what they're called, the coroners, like horrible people. They could have made them deviants, but and like she was getting revenge, but instead it was just your average people doing a day's work, and she went for them.
Yeah. And they were very like gentle with her, like the way they examined her and stuff. Like it was very, as you say, very respectful. So yeah, it just goes to show that there's like, well, from what we know in the opening, when we eventually find out about Jane, like you know that like she doesn't like that there's no redemption for anyone. Like it's very much like you guys are gonna die. Like whoever you are, however nice you are, however much you're trying to help me, it doesn't matter.
She's seen the bad in the world and she's out for revenge. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I
She's
mean,
going full carry.
going full carry. I mean, they also cut her open and cut her ribs, which, like, that's got to be the worst part of being alive in a autopsy. That or the skull.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so she was alive through all of that, which is really fucked. And so that is kind of similar to Martyrs in that it's
Yeah, actually, yeah. This is the second skinning we've seen in 2 weeks.
yeah.
I actually love the skin part.
Do you?
Just because I loved when they essentially peel her skin off, which again must have fucking hurt considering she was not conscious, alive. And that all the artwork, that's what it's called, but all the pagan symbols and everything on the inside, I thought was incredible. Is it pagan
Yeah,
symbols?
that was
I'm just
really
gonna go with symbols.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know which religion they were from, so rather than I'm not gonna not gonna make anyone the bad guy here.
No, fair. That was really cool actually seeing all of that, like the imprints like in her skin. But as you say, like well, now you know that like she was alive through all of this. It's really fucked thinking about what they did to her unknowingly.
Yeah. It's so like please make sure I'm dead before you do the autopsy.
Yeah.
Or if not,
please.
start with the brain. Like take the brain out so I physically cannot be alive anymore. Like I don't want to do the rest of it. I don't want to do the rib breaking.
Fuck no.
Oh, but again, like she looked dead. Like she wasn't breathing. She was perfectly like everything told you that she was dead.
Yeah. Well, as you say, like it looked like she was dead for sure. But as you learn the story and you get into the film more, you kind of like once I'd known the truth about her, or I'd learned a little bit more about her, every time there was a shot to her, I was like, she looks a bit more alive there. She looks a bit more, there's something that's changed. Yeah, which I thought was really clever.
Her color was coming back a bit. Yeah, her eyes get a bit clearer. At what point did you kind of piece together that there was something witchy?
I think when I think it was when the dad was kind of talking about it out loud, like he didn't mention anything to do with witches just yet, but he was kind of like, oh, I think was there a not a Bible verse, but there was some sort of term used.
I want to say Leviticus.
Thank you. Yeah,
something like that. I might be wrong, but it was something like that.
Is that a Bible verse?
Because that was it. When they said the word, I literally was like, how do they know that's from the Bible? Like, I would have immediately been like, I'd have had to Google it.
Yeah, sorry. Leviticus is the third book of the Bible. So I kind of thought, okay, this is either going into kind of like demon territory. But then when I saw the writing, it felt a lot more folk horror to me. It felt a lot more kind of folky. So I was like, okay, it's quite cool. But the only thing I was a bit confused about was like the dad managed to kind of work it all out quite quickly and like said, oh, this is what happened to her. And like, I get it. He was piecing the information together, but he wasn't going off very much. And he was like, oh yeah, and she was this and she was that. And I was kind of like, well, how do
Yeah.
you know this? But as he said earlier, like when you're doing an autopsy, you figure out the story. Like, so that's kind of what he was doing. But I was like, how do you know all of this?
Like, you're right. That was the one bit again when he came, he was like, oh, Leviticus, the Bible. And I was like, I'd have had to Google. Like, because that wouldn't
Yeah.
have just like, I know that word, but I wouldn't have remembered where
Yeah,
from.
same. Yeah.
So I think, and again, I know like morticians and coroners are incredibly smart, but are they not smart in their field? Like to just happen to know a Bible verse and then also happen to remember the dates and everything for the Salem witch trials. Like, and again,
Exactly.
I know it's America, so as well, when they're like, oh, up north, this sand, witchy, like again, I get that is probably taught more in their schools, so it's probably more in their brain. But again, I was like, it's very, yeah, it was very quickly put together. And
Yeah.
he knew the Roman numerals like off the top of his head. I was like, you didn't have to double check which one was which. Like, it was all a little bit too convenient that he just had all the answers in his head.
Yeah, exactly. Like he didn't have to kind of search anything or work anything out. It was kind of like he just knew everything.
And he just
So
happened to have a Bible
yeah.
there.
Yeah. So
That was the only bit I was like, that was like you say, like some bits were a bit slower. That bit they just sped through the investigation. I was like, dang, guys, like I know it's telling a story, but again, I would have thought more from when they were talking about like sex trafficking. That would think
yeah,
I was like, because he's seen those injuries before. I was like, you haven't seen a
exactly.
witch before, dude. And then he just figured out that, oh, well, they accidentally made her a witch by doing it. And I was like, you figured that out quite easily.
Yeah, like you've just gone straight to witch. Like I'm not sure I would, when in doubt, witch. Well, there we go. That's how people used to treat
I want that on a
people, I
t-shirt.
guess.
When in doubt, witch. To be fair, that's what they did. But he even says like
that's what they used to do.
It is, but he even says that like there were no witches in Salem. Like it was just girls. It was just people, and it was just gossip, and there wasn't witches. So you can't just suddenly be like, well, she was a witch unless they've made her.
No.
To be fair, I think the bit for me was the lungs. I was like, that's a fire. But also I can't think what it's called, but like the first bit of symbol they found with the tooth in it. I was like, that feels very much like a hex bag. Yeah. That feels very supernatural hex bag. So I was like, okay, that's a witch. And again, I couldn't remember if I just remembered the ending or if I was like figuring it out.
Or you're just being clever.
If I'm actually being clever. So I'll assume that there was something in my head, much like Dr. Tilden's.
Yeah, well, he can do it. Why can't you?
Exactly.
Yeah, good point. Actually, the smoke in the lungs would have been a big giveaway, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think as he was working it out himself and he got the Bible out, that's when I started to think, okay, this is either a possession or a witch thing. And I was pleasantly surprised that it was a witch thing because there are so many possession films out there, and especially the year that this came out, like they were just churning them out. So it was actually really refreshing to see something different.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. That was kind of it.
Yeah, I think so.
No, I'm good.
A tiny little notepad.
I couldn't find my notebook, so I got the smallest, like little post-it notes.
One word.
No, I was like, if I don't write it down, I will forget about the bloody cat or about the radio being sassy. Okay, well, what are we giving the Autopsy of Jane Doe? Spookies out of 5, and what's your favorite spooky moment?
Ooh, favorite spooky moment. I'm gonna say the bell ringing again. I just liked it. It was kind of fun. It was kind of cheesy, but you were just waiting for it, and I think it worked really well within the film.
Yeah.
And I really liked it. And I do kind of like those kind of fun jump scary things and in horror films when they're done right and the director knows when to put them in. I think they're done really well. So and I think I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5 spookies. I really enjoyed it. Thought it was really good. But like you said at the beginning, I don't think it's one like I would instantly rush back to. I think I've seen it. It's quite nice to sit on it and think about it.
Yeah.
But again, like I think for you, like similar thing with you, like I'd like to leave a bit of a gap and then watch it again and maybe look out for clues and look out for things that maybe I missed in the first one. But I liked it. I thought it was good. I thought it was creepy. It was clever. There were some good jump scares in there. And it was everything you kind of wanted from a horror film, really. So, but I enjoyed it for the most part. But yeah, what did you think?
I still think I really like this. Like, again, I was trying to, yeah, like I think there was bits where I was like, they kind of figured that out a bit quick. It was not underwhelming at the end, but there were kind of two halves that feel a bit different. And yeah, so I think at the end I was kind of, and I think at that point you just have so much empathy for Jane Doe that you're like, oh, you poor, I'm so sorry, and you almost feel horrible.
Yeah, good for you.
Watching the film, and you're like, you poor thing. And good for you.
Everything makes sense.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to give this 4 because again, I think it's just a bit of me. Yeah, I'm going to go 4. I also didn't know it was the director's first film in English, which I kind of love as well because fucking fair play with having to deal with all the medical terms as well as everything else. But I think I know I've already said it, but I think when they open up her skin and you've got the symbols on the inside, I think that was just
pretty cool,
incredible. And I don't think I've seen another film that does that. Like, because again, like, how do you get to that layer? And I think that was incredible. And I think it kind of, again, once you remember she's alive, once you remember she did experience this and then has been dead and tortured for years, I think that it just makes it so much more horrific.
Yeah.
So yes, that's mine.
You
would survive the autopsy of Jane Doe.
No, because I don't think she leaves any prisoners, like we were saying earlier. I think like she could make deals, but I don't think they necessarily mean anything. I think that she's very much too much on a rampage. It kind of is giving Carrie where like nothing is going to get in her way or stop her.
No.
So no, I don't think she takes any prisoners. So I'm going to say no on this one.
I actually want to know if she made a deal with Emma or if Emma was just kind of caught in the crossfire with the vision and then the axe, which again, I kind of love that they all kind of mirrored the deaths we already saw earlier and how they had like someone with half a face, and I thought it was kind of cool. But yeah, I wonder if she made a deal there. But I think you're right. I don't think I would survive, not necessarily because of one, she is on a rampage, but like obviously I'm not a mortician, I'm not an officer, I'm not a police officer, so I wouldn't really be in one of those professional roles. I'm more likely to be the poor fucker driving the van at the end, trying to take it to the next coroner. She's gonna sit up in the back and scare the shit out of me. So I just don't think you're gonna survive because, like you say, she's out for revenge. Like I'd love to think that if I'd figured out she was live, I'd have been like, I'm going to give you a bath. I'm going to make you comfortable. I'm going to help you. And then we'll figure out how to like bring you back to life. But I mean, it had to be a sacrifice from what we learned. So yeah, I don't think we're surviving it, I'm afraid.
No, don't think we're going to do this one.
Well, amazing. That was the autopsy of Jane Doe. Join us again next week for our 100th episode. Fucking hell. So yes, follow us on all the socials to see what it's going to be, so you can watch along with us. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Don't
die.
If you do, make sure you're really dead before the autopsy.
Yay.
Oh, it's such a horrible idea.